It is May 22, 1989. On a launch pad on the coast of Orissa, the Agni missile is fueled and ready. After 2 previous launch attempts were aborted in the final seconds, the pressure from the international community has reached a breaking point. Inside the blockhouse, the mission team held their breath. They weren't just testing a rocket. Resources and no history of long-range missile development reached this exact precipice. To find the answer, we have to travel back to the island town of Rameshwaram. This is the childhood home of A.P.J. Abdul Kalam, a place defined by its religious harmony and isolated coastal rhythm. It was here that Kalam's father taught him that when things go wrong, the most effective response is to look inward. He believed that inner calm was the only way to analyze and solve a crisis. While his father taught him composure, his mentor, Jalaluddin, exposed him to the world outside. He brought news of scientific breakthroughs from across the globe, teaching Kalam that his potential wasn't limited by the geography of a small island. This combination, quiet internal focus and a constant hunger for external knowledge, provided the practical tools Kalam used later to manage the immense complexities of India's defense initiatives. The 1960s brought a harsh reality check. The conflicts of 1962 and 1965 showed that India's borders were vulnerable and its military equipment was aging. At the time, the country was almost entirely dependent on other nations for its hardware. If a foreign supplier cut off parts or denied a sale, the national defense was effectively paralyzed. Kalam had seen the importance of defying these kinds of external limits before. His teacher, Siva Subramania Iyer, once invited him to eat in a traditional Brahmin kitchen, breaking a deep social taboo to show Kalam that progress only happens when you refuse to accept the status quo. The lesson was clear. If India wanted to remain truly sovereign, it had to stop asking for permission and start building its own path to security. After years of working on civilian satellite launchers, Kalam moved into a new leadership role. He was tasked with turning the dream of domestic missile production into a reality. He proposed a radical plan to Defense Minister R. Venkataraman. Instead of developing one missile at a time, India would build 5 different systems at once, covering every possible threat. The government agreed. They launched the Integrated Guided Missile Development Program with a budget of 388 crore rupees, the largest investment of its kind in the nation's history. This project aimed to produce the Prithvi for short-range strikes, the Trishul and Akash for air defense, the Nag for anti-tank warfare, and the long-range Agni. This wasn't just a purchase order. It was a bet that Indian scientists could out-innovate the world's established weapons manufacturers. Agni was the most difficult of the 5. It was a re-entry technology demonstrator, designed to leave the atmosphere and survive the violent return to Earth. This diagram shows the physics of that return. Friction with the air creates a plasma shield that reaches 2,500 degrees Celsius. To succeed, the internal electronics have to remain at a cool 40 degrees, even as the exterior melts. Other nations refused to sell India the carbon composite materials needed to build this heat shield. They believed that by withholding the materials, they could stop the Agni program entirely. Kalam responded by building a domestic network of 20 different labs and universities. Together, they invented their own carbon-carbon composites and the flight software to control them, solving the material science problem from the ground up. Because the world said no to India, India was forced to master the science for itself. Back on the launch pad in 1989, the countdown reaches 0. Liftoff. The Agni missile rose from the pad, performing exactly as designed, and hitting its target in the Bay of Bengal with precision. The success meant that India now had the hardware to secure its own borders. Within years, these indigenous systems were mounted on mobile launchers, ready for service. Looking at the flight data, Kalam considered the broader impact. After decades of relying on foreign technology, the country had finally proven it could trust its own scientific mind. The Agni launch showed that the domestic network of engineers could overcome any embargo. They had built a high-tech system that was entirely their own. In his diary, Kalam called Agni a fire in the heart of the people. It was the physical proof that the persistence of a few thousand scientists could provide lasting security for an entire nation.